I really began as a sculptor, uneducated, working outside of the realms of art, really. And then I discovered electronic sound, and that was kind of a bridge to working. I mean, that made me open to this thing that kind of just popped up, and that's really how I started in electronics. I knew nothing about it. But this really provided the kind of limitation to kind of push against, and I tend to work best with radical limitations, and just survival, and trying to do that, especially in 1973. It was much more expensive then, and I did a lot of things just to get access. But I suppose over time I've really become more of a kind of writer, and yet I'm not really a writer in any kind of traditional or literary sense. But it is a kind of working with language and a kind of intermediate space. It's really kind of looking for spaces in between, kind of usurp the image to kind of bring it down to size, because really the image is really the virus that has infected everything. And so a lot of it is somewhat of a critique of that. This is one of the few editions that I've done. And this is called Poor Man's Guilt. And you open this up, and on here, which are not there now, are 5 silver coins of myself beating myself up, punching my face, and in different ways with Latin phrases. And on the back, they're all the same. It's basically my ass being whipped with a laurel branch, like the one that the Liberty Lady holds on the coins. And then there's a spoken text that comes out of this little speaker here about how bad the world is. Very bad. I made this way overly ambitious work involving building the false floor and the second floor, and it involved a derrick-like structure with a spinning top, a long horizontal spinning propeller, really. And the whole thing was a kind of very complex but very mechanical and rough cycle of reinvention of the wheel. And then it would bring it up, the thing would start spinning, and the wheels fall off, you could say, and the whole process would start again. What was interesting about this was that I knew nothing about motors, bushings, and all kinds of stuff. And I learned this all kind of on the spot, and it took me 3 months. But anyway, it was a really good experience, actually. I was invited to be in the Documenta 9, I believe it was, and I went there to look for a space. And they showed me a bunch of spaces, and one of which was this long, strange corridor, like 90 feet long, and 10 feet high, and 10 feet wide. And I said, I'll do something here. Pretty much right away, I started thinking of, it was going to be people. Originally, I think they were going to be on monitors, and they were actually going to come out and say idiomatic expressions, somewhat taken from an earlier work I did called Primarily Speaking. But as time went on, I decided to strip out the language completely, and just having it, the people confront the viewer in a very direct and simple way. And I just went for the simplest of activity I possibly could, because it was really about this idiomatic meeting, meeting the stranger that is you, in a matter of speaking. Many of the things I do come from art meets life, very kind of mundane little happenings. I trip over a wire and I get an idea. It's really that kind of thing. It really has nothing to do with technology, and you know, except for just this sort of. In the end, it's just it kind of touches on the mystery, a kind of mystery of life. Really just kind of the kind of awe that happens everywhere. I'm Gary Hill. I'm an artist, and I live in Seattle, and I've been here for about 24 years.